Hello and welcome to this edition of African View with me, Yodita Admasu. In this edition, we are going to talk about genetically modified organisms, GMO. We have listened to a lot of stories, a lot of speculations and research on various medias. And to talk to me about what GMO is, Ethiopia's policy, its advantage and its disadvantage, I'm joined by a biotechnologist, Adunya Admas. Thank you for coming. He's a researcher with the Ethiopian Environmental and Forestry Research Institute. So first, shall we start by defining GMO? What's GMO?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you to discuss about GMO view in Africa. Yeah, before giving clear definition about GMO, it is better to talk about biotechnology, because biotechnology is one component of biotechnology. So biotechnology is the use of any living organism to agriculture product, the use of living organism to industry, the use of living organism for environmental management, the use of any living organism for any medical value, we call it biotechnology. Example, if we are using microbes to enhance the soil fertility, it is one application of biotechnology in agriculture. If we also we use different plant species for extraction, to extract antibiotics to cure any medicine. So biotechnology have on its own role on medicine. Also, it is highly applicable in different continents, using a microbe to clean the polluted environment. So biotechnology have its own role on environmental management. Also, we can use different microbes to catalyze or to start any manufacturing process. For example, in the cheese manufacturing industry, you can use microbes in the cheese produce as a starter. So biotechnology it is vast. It have any role for any bioeconomic.
So behind every biological research, there is those kind of technologies, those research that you are doing at the
yeah.
institute.
Yeah, example, in our research institute, we have utilized or we are using different microbes to control any invasive weeds. For example, there is a high invasive weeds, the so-called water ricin. It is highly infested in Lectana. So we use different microbes or the fungi species to control the water ricin infestation and Lectana, so we can somehow control in some area using a microbe or fungi. So also biotechnology has our role in controlling the invasive weeds. So in Ethiopia also we use such application.
So are you using such research on Tana Lake?
Yeah.
To preserve the water without touching the organisms that are already living in the lake, to just eliminate the weed?
Yeah, we have studied there is different biodiversity exists in Lake Tana. So before releasing to the weed or the water ricin infestation to control by those microbes, we are trying these microbes have impact on other biodiversity. So after taking serious research, so we did apply it, and it was effective in some areas. So it was promising. I hope within 1 year or 2 years, we have hope to control the infestation through different fungal species in Lake Tana.
Okay, so when we come to GMO, genetically modified organisms, it's a little bit different from the biotechnological research that you are doing, a little bit modified or advanced. So what is it, GMO? When we say GMO, it's a modification of organisms. How do you modify, how do you change the genetics of one organism to the other?
Yeah, you know, as previously I tried to mention, GMO it is one component of biotechnology. The clear definition of GMO is we have a lot of living organisms. We have living things like plant, microbe, or any animal, even we can say human. So we categorize as an organism, living organism. So if we are intended to change their natural gene makeup through assisting genetic engineering to get a desired product. So by bringing different gene from different sources, we can make the natural living organism as we need. So the process, through this process, the created or the modified living organism, we can say genetically modified organism. Example, if you go around in Abay Bara or in Abay deserts, in the down of Kwasion or in the down of Dejen, the environment is highly degraded because the area is high desert. So naturally, most plants they have not survived there. But if you search or if you observe in those areas, different microbes that are existing in the desert soil. So the role of GMO in these cases, microbes, yeah, they exist in those harsh environment, but to live, those microbes, they have their own gene to tolerate that drought area. So by collecting those microbes and by identifying the gene which tolerates that microorganism to exist in that harsh environment. So after selecting those genes by using genetic engineering, we can transfer that drought-tolerant gene to target plant species through genetic engineering. But it does not mean that all gene of microbes transfer to that plant, but the only transfer the drought-tolerant gene. It may be one or two. So that target plant hold that microbe's character. So
let me stop you here. And some might argue, especially the naturalists, they might say, if that organism is drought tolerant, it's meant to be there. If you are messing or changing the course of nature, and if you are taking the drought tolerant gene from that organism and giving it to another which was not meant to be there, if it cannot survive the drought, it means nature didn't allow it or didn't permit it. Yeah. Why would you mess with the nature?
Living organism as living organism by their own nature is differ from others. But some living organisms their own character, but other organisms also their own character, but they share some character. As I try to give an example, in the desert area, they have more microbes. For example, if you go in Dalol area, in the Dalol area you can get microbes, but you didn't see any plant. That is why the microbe is own gene that assists to tolerate that desert area. But during transfer, there some tolerant gene to the plant. It does not mean that all plants have hold the microbe's character, but only share the drought tolerance characters. But before releasing to the environment, it will need serious research. Is the nature which is shifted to living to modified habits the own impact or not? After taking this research, if it has a great role as we target the target objective, yes, we can apply those the modified organism. We call it GMO. We will say GMO plants.
Okay, so we have understood that in GMO, genetically modified organisms, what you do is you take a gene, the desired gene, from one organism to another organism. So let's go to my next question. In the media and research, we have heard a lot of things about GMO, the advantages and the disadvantages. The advantage, some might say that it is it enables us, especially developing countries like ours, it enables the farmer to produce a lot of crops. And the disadvantage, they say it might have, or it has, short-term and long-term effects. So what do you say about this? What's the advantage and disadvantage of using this technology?
GMO by itself, it has advantages. It has advantages on agriculture to create drought tolerance crops, to create herbicide resistance crops, to create pesticide resistance crops, to create fast growth plants. So if we need to minimize the chemical for pesticide or to use chemical for herbicide, GMO, it has its own role to minimize or to leave the chemical. So it has direct role on environment as well, to reclaim the degraded environment by creating drought tolerant plants in the drought area. So biotechnology in agriculture, they have as such role. Also, when it came to medicine, most diabetes patients in our world, they are using insulin. Insulin is a GM, is a genetic engineering products. Let me add another example. If one individual inherited from their parents the defective gene, this defective gene may be exposed from eye or another part of the body. But through genetic engineering, we can alter the defective gene and we can recover that defected man to normal condition. So GMO have its own role even in the gene therapy. That is also GMO have its own role in environmental management. As you know, in different cities, you will see different plastics, because plastic by nature, they didn't degrade it. But through genetic engineering, by modifying different microbes, the engineered microbes can degrade that plastic. So GMO have its own role in environmental management. Also in industry, by modifying different microbes, we can accelerate our industrial process. So GMO have its own role in any sectors. But when you see its disadvantage, of course, GMO have introduced in our role in 1996 as commercialized. After that, every continent they use GMO, especially if you go in US America, they use GMO for the last 25 to 20 years. But there is no scientific research document which shows that the GMO have its own toxic role, or it have a digestive problem, or it does not show any allergenicity. So in the short term, GMO have not show any tangible documents, but for the future, you cannot be sure